just want to speak quickly about the tropical zodiac, and I use quotes for this word zodiac on purpose. So we've known this for a long time. The ancients knew this. You have the path of the sun that goes around the earth, and it stays within these bounds of the tropics. You have the equator here, and we know that Aries is this part of the sun's path. We know that Taurus is this part of the sun's path. Gemini is this part of the sun's path, and so on. The Greek word tropos is where we get the word we use tropical today, and it means to turn or change, and that's what it's referring to. The tropics, the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn, and the tropical zodiac comes from the sun reaching each of these tropic points and turning or changing its path to go in the other direction. So the Tropic of the solstices, the Tropic of Cancer, and it turns to go back south to Capricorn, and then your solstice when the sun reaches Capricorn and it turns and goes back up north to Cancer. Just a quick refresher of what that looks like. The sun's path over the course of a year in one position, you'll see this, but what it looks like over the earth is not a perfect circle. It's going to be that elliptic or ellipse circle, or the way that I was drawing it actually comes out kind of like a peach shape. So when we look at this arc on the earth, you have these zones 1 through 12. So the zodiac, which we shouldn't be using that word, but we do, so that's, I use the word so that you know what I'm talking about. You have these sections or zones of the sun's path. This is the sun's path around the earth, but Aries is the first part after it crosses the equator. It's the first section or zone of its path. Taurus is the second, third, and so on. So we could use the numbers, or we could use the glyphs. So this part of the sun's path after it crosses the equator is Aries, then Taurus, Gemini, and so on. So here's just what that would look like on, this map, Edgar Cayce's chart that I keep going back to just for reference so that we're understanding this. So the equator's here. This is when the sun is in this part or anywhere around, this circle, but this part kind of here, this first third of this circle, when the sun is there, it's in Aries. And as it approaches this second third of this zone, it's in Taurus. When the sun is in its last third of its path, you're in Gemini. When it hits the furthest reaches at the solstice, and it starts coming back down, then you're in 4, 5, 6, or otherwise known as Cancer, Leo, Virgo, and so on. So we could use numbers, or we could use the glyphs, but this is what the sun does. This is how it looks over the earth. Whether you think the earth is flat or not, it doesn't matter. This is a legit projection of the earth, and this is what it's doing over the earth, overhead. So the ancient Vedic texts refer to the zodiac as the sun's path's division into 12. So we're talking about the ecliptic, the sun's path, and they used numbers. I will link a good translation and explanation for you in the description. I'm not going to go into it now, but if you want to dive deeper into this, I'll link it for you guys. So what we keep calling the zodiac are just the 12 zones or sections of this path. So Edgar Cayce's sun was in Pisces, so we could also just call him a 12. If you were born with the sun in Leo, you would be a 5, etc., and so on. Later, animals were associated with these sections or zones. Yes, they do work. I'm a Pisces, and the element of water and the fish, all of that does work. But that's the beauty of how this place works, the world that we live in. As above, so below, as within, so without. This quote from Hermes Trismegistus. We are given everything around us in nature as an example and archetype of all of these energies and how they work. The stars were used merely as reference points from our vantage point on Earth looking upwards. Yes, they have shifted since then over the millennia, but it has no effect or change on the tropical zodiac or the ecliptic or the sun's path. Nakshatras are the correct usage of the night sky and the constellations, i.e. the sidereal zodiac. What astrology is sacred geometry. The ancients knew this. We've known this for a long time. You're looking at all of the planets above the Earth, whether you think it's flat or not, it doesn't matter, it's overhead. And you're looking at the sacred geometry of those planets' relationships to each other and how that influences us down on Earth. Astrology is sacred geometry. Okay, I just want to talk briefly about house systems. There are a lot of different house systems out there. I know there's a big argument that Placidus was only used because there were tables available, and yes, that makes sense. But I've done a lot of study into different house systems and Placidus, and in my usage, I find Placidus to be really accurate in fine-tuning details. But, something that is important to understand, that ancient astrologers were also astronomers, and a lot of us nowadays that are astrologers don't really go out and look up at the skies. Probably most of us don't own a telescope. We don't look up at the heavens, the way that they used to. So understanding all of these calculations and being able to do all of this, we don't have that, and thank goodness we have computer technology, software that does it for us. But as an astrologer, I think it's still important to, whether you use the math on a regular basis, I think it's important to understand the astronomy and how it works. And that's, how I've come to this place of, with the map I'm using, because I've studied all this stuff, I find it really important. Anyway, I think David Cochrane, who works with Sirius astrology software, I think he does a really great job of explaining a lot of this stuff in astronomy. It is heavy, kind of complicated. I think he does a good job, but if you don't want to look into it, or if you do want to look into it, just be aware that it is kind of complicated. But I've seen this video he has here, how Placidus house cups are calculated. I've seen this video a couple of times, and it's taken me a few times to watch it and hear him explain it. And I've looked at some other things too, but I'm recommending him and his channel here, Cosmic Cybernetics and Cosmobiology. Another one that is good to watch, well, he has several of them that are helpful to watch. He talks about the astronomy, so how house cups are calculated. So I can link those down below, or you can just take a screenshot of these and look them up yourself. But he does a really good job of explaining how Placidus works and why it works, and I'm using Placidus in my work, and I find it really accurate. So we'll get to that later. So I actually don't have his Sirius software. I might consider getting it at some point, but this is the software that he develops and he works with. So I'll just you know, I don't even have it myself. I just give him a plug because knowing that somebody understands the calculations and how it works, you know, I would be interested to see how Sirius works. But so that's just a quick plug for him. So again, this is Edgar Cayce's chart, and this is a Placidus house system. So the thing that a lot of people don't like about Placidus is that all the houses are skewed, but that's really important, and that goes into the ecliptic that I just explained, and you know, I'll get to that. So again, this is his midheaven. His sun is over here. His Uranus is just above his horizon here, and you'll see his first house is pretty small, you know, size-wise. And if you look at his fourth house, so, and that'll correspond over here. It's large just to show the planet glyphs, but if you see the tick marks, you know, and this section of the curve, you know, it's pretty small in comparison to like the fourth house. There's a much wider section, and that's going to correspond to the 10th house as well. So when we're looking at that on the map, the reason that you have this skewed ascendant and you have these skewed houses is because of the elliptical shape of the ecliptic, this orange circle here. So again, I haven't moved the placement of the planets. You remember the sun is over here because he was born at 320. You remember Mars and Jupiter over here. So here's Uranus sitting on the ascendant. So I've finally added to your view, I've added the ascendant line. And if you look at his Placidus chart, you see it's skewed this way, and you have a larger section this way. We have larger sections here, and it's skewed here. So in my research, the reason that is because of the shape of the ecliptic. And depending on the time of day you were born, where on Earth you were born, and wherever this skewed shape of the ecliptic is in relation to your birthplace, that's why you're going to get these houses that are different sizes. And again, to explain that, I'll refer you to, you know, David Cochrane, or there's plenty of other information out there that explains how Placidus houses work. But when I get deeper into the maps, which I'm going to do next, you'll see that these placements that I took from the Placidus chart are accurate.